Swami Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Guru Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the Samudvara. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Mirandasya Vinandana Shokaya Sudamritandana Tasmaya Shri Guru Maha Shri Chaitanya Manavasthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadam Nadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanekya Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Bhutaya Mahaprema Parami Gurnyamachadedam Suprasha Muktagana Suprasa Sadasa Bhagavanta Shrishta Bhagavan Vachantine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12, Mahinimurti Garuda's Lord Shiva, text 12. Avataramaya Drishta Avataramaya Drishta Avataramaya Drishta Avataramaya Drishta Ramamanasya Te Gunai Ramamanasya Te Gunai Ramamanasya Te Gunai Ramamanasya Te Gunai Soham tadrastamicchami Soham tadrastamicchami Soham tadrastamicchami Soham tadrastamicchami Yatteya Shidvapurtritam Yatteya Shidvapurtritam Yatteya Shidvapurtritam Yatteya Shidvapurtritam Avataramaya Drishta Avataramaya Drishta Ramamanasya Te Gunai Ramamanasya Te Gunai Soham tadrastamicchami tadrashtumichami Yatte yoshi vapuritam
Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtumichami Yatte yoshi vapuritam
Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtumichami Yatte yoshi vapuritam
Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te ganai Soham tadrishtam ichami Yatte yoshid vapuritam
Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtum ichchami Yatte yoshi vapuritam
Ladies, please.
Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtam ichchami Yatte yoshit vapuritam Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtum ichchami Yatte yoshit vapuritam Avatara maya drishta Ramanasya te gunai Soham tadrashta ichchami Yatte yoshit vapuritam Avatara maya drishta Ramamanasya te gunai Soham tadrashtam ichchami Yatte yoshit vapuritam
The third line reads drashtum rather than drishtum. Drishta is in the first line, and third line is drashtum. Okay, so synonyms: avatara, incarnation. Maya, by me. Drishta, have been seen. Ramamanasya, while you demonstrate your various pastimes. Te, of you. Gunai, by the manifestations of transcendental qualities. Saha, Lord Shiva. Aham, I. Tat, that incarnation. Drashtumichami, wish to see. Yat, which. Te, of you. Yoshitvapu, the body of a woman. Tritam, was accepted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My Lord, I have seen all kinds of incarnations you have exhibited by your transcendental qualities, and now that you have appeared as a beautiful young woman, I wish to see that form of your Lordship. Purport. When Lord Shiva approached Lord Vishnu inquired about the purpose for Lord Shiva's coming there. Now Lord Shiva disclosed his desire. he wanted to see the recent incarnation of Mohini Murti, which Lord Vishnu had assumed to distribute the nectar generated from the churning of the ocean of milk. So now we're coming to the motivational part that Lord Shiva offered so many prayers to the Supreme Lord, and naturally the question, the silent question is, so what's next? You glorified him, you glorified me, so what can I do for you? And Lord Shiva says about his motivation, he says, yeah, I want to see that very special incarnation of yours. I have seen many incarnations, because Lord Shiva is very special personality, and he witnesses so many pastimes of the Supreme Lord. He takes part in many of them directly, and so he has seen many incarnations, but somehow this particular incarnation he missed out on this particular incarnation. And this is very unusual avatar, because there are unlimited avatars or incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Ramadi Murti Shukalani Menatishtam Nanavatara Makarodvulani Shakinta. Brahma Samhita says all these incarnations, starting with Lord Rama, they are non-avatar, unlimited as waves in the ocean. Who can count how many waves are in the ocean? No one can count, right? Even Ananta Shesh, he's struggling so hard. It was actually a funny pastime that the Lord struck a deal with Ananta Shesh. He said, can you hold all these universes on your hoods? And Ananta Shesha was asking, for how long? And the Lord said, you can put them down after you finish describing my pastimes. And Ananta Shesha has thousands of mouths. He is like the broadcasting, station. And so, but there are so many pastimes of the Supreme Lord happening, and so many incarnations, and so Ananta Shesha is trying very hard to finish all this, and still he can't, right? So the Lord transcendentally deceived him. And so, there are unlimited incarnations, but they are also amazing. And the Lord Shiva specifically came when he heard about this particular incarnation, because it is outstanding incarnation, right? Because the Supreme Lord is Adipurusha, Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. He is the original male, he is the original predominator. And of course, when he comes with his female counterpart, with his eternal consort, Sita Rama, etc., etc. Rukmini, Dwarkadish. But for the Lord directed to accept the form of a woman, Yashrit Bapu, that body of a woman, appear in the body of a woman, that's very unusual, that's outstanding. And Lord Shiva became very curious to see that form of the Lord. Right? So he came to Krishna because he wanted to see that form. And we can say how that relates to us, to our life. Well, we also come to Krishna because we have different motivations. And Bhagavad Gita describes Chatur Vidabhajantimam Jnana Sukritin Arjuna Arto Jigyasura Tati. Jnani cha Paratarshana. There are 4 types of people, pious people, Krishna says, who come to me. And what are these 4 types of people? Distressed, inquisitive, yeah, desiring for wealth and knowledge. Yes, so these 4 motivations are there. And we know that one question devotees can answer pretty easily, and that is, how did I came to Krishna consciousness? But there is another question which is even more important, and which many devotees haven't even thought about, and that is, why did I came to Krishna consciousness? What's my motivation, right? What do I want to gain by being in this movement? And so, but I think it's important, very clear, because Lord Shiva is very clear here. Why did he come? He wanted to see that form of the Lord. And actually it's described in Bhagavad Gita that not everyone is equal, and not all the motivations are equally good, because he says, Tesham Gyani Nityayukta Bhakti Vishishyate. Only one who is searching for knowledge, who wants to understand Krishna and understand one's relationships with Krishna, that's the best motivation. Because other motivations are temporary. Like if someone is distressed, then he comes to Krishna for the relief of the distress, and Krishna is fulfilling everyone's desire. But once the distress is relieved, then that person is not motivated anymore. Right? He gained, or he or she gained from Krishna what they wanted, and then effectively they can leave Krishna. And those who want wealth, that's not a big thing for Krishna, to help someone, and then that motivation is over, right? And even inquisitive, well, that's better motivation actually, because it says Tasmat Gurum Prapadyata Jigyasu Shayutama, right? Jigyasu means inquisitive. So inquisitiveness is a good start for development of Krishna consciousness, because one can inquire from a self-realized soul, guru. But if that inquisitiveness is only lying in the material sphere, then that can be satisfied very easily, and then one can run out of the motivation, right? But if someone really wants to understand Krishna, that's like, because Krishna is unlimited. And it's not really possible to understand Krishna in full, right? And so that's why this is very solid motivation. This is a very effective foundation for the development of one's Krishna consciousness. And we can say that Lord Shiva is motivated by curiosity in here, right? But it is very special type of curiosity, because Lord Shiva is very special type of devotee. Vaishnava Shambhu. Actually, Lord Shiva is Mahadev, and all this pastime, which is about to unfold in here, in this chapter, is very unusual, because it appears like Lord Shiva became a victim of lust. And this is mind-blowing, right? Because Lord Shiva was never ever affected by lust. He is like the best of the yogis, right? That Krishna is defined that as Yogeshwara, right? He's the master of yoga. But Lord Shiva is defined as Yogishwara, the master of all the yogis. He's the best of all the yogis, right? So, of course, the master of all the yoga is higher than the master of all the yogis, but still, the position of being the master of all the yogis, the topmost of all the yogis, that's pretty high, right? And yoga means, yoga is meant for self-control. And of all the objects of sense gratification, the desire to gratify oneself with the company of opposite sex is the topmost, because it is explained that this situation can gratify all one's senses at the same time, right? So that's why this attraction for the opposite sex is so strong. And that's why the greatest power in the material world is lust, right? And everyone is affected by that. Cupid or Kamadev. And there are only two personalities who are never affected by the power of lust. And that is Krishna, because he himself is known as Kamadev, supreme Cupid. So he is not affected by the mundane Cupid, by the tiny little demigod. As we know, in Vrindavan there is one place which is called Mohantara or Madantara. Anyway, the place on the Parikram mark where Kamadev was defeated by Krishna. That at one point, when Krishna was in Vrindavan and associating with all the gopis, and he was never affected by lust, and that's was very unusual. And then this information came to Kamadev, and it's kind of irregularity in his kingdom, that a young boy surrounded by the most beautiful young girls, not only on the earth but the entire creation, and he is unaffected by lust. And so Kamadev was thinking, no, that has to be corrected. And then he swiftly went to Vrindavan, and then he saw Krishna surrounded by so many gopis, and then he saw that not affected by lust. Wow, that's really the wrong thing. And so he put the arrow in his bow, and he decided to shoot this arrow into Krishna's heart, the arrow of lust, lusty desire. And in order to hit the target, first thing you have to concentrate on the target, right? And then he looked at Krishna, and then Krishna is described, he cast a sidelong glance at Kamadev, and it was as if, Kamadev was trying to shoot Krishna directly, but Krishna shot him from the hip, so to say. He just cast a sidelong glance, and it's described that his brows are like two eyebrows are two bows, and Krishna has bows but no strings. But then, because these bows are transcendental, the sign of this bow is on his foot also. But he's shooting the arrows of his glances from the, what you call it, central point of the eye, what do you call it? Pupil. Huh?
The pupil?
Yeah, from the pupil of his eye. And then he started shooting all these arrows, so many arrows, like he raised his eyebrows, so he strung his bow, and then he shot so many arrows of Kamadev, transcendental arrows, right? And all these arrows went straight into Kamadev's heart. So Kamadev was trying to shoot Krishna, but Krishna was much faster. And so he literally, shot so many arrows at him. And Kamadev was so affected by all these arrows that his whole body started shaking. And, the tears started flowing from his eyes. But still he didn't understand what happened to him. And he still tried to, string his bow and shoot the arrow, and then Krishna cast another glance at him. And then, he exhibited all 8 symptoms of ecstasy, and he actually fainted there in the bushes. He was trying to shoot Krishna from behind the bushes. And then he fell on the ground, and his bow and arrows, they were all scattered around, and gopis looked at what's happening there in the bushes. It's all right. Someone fell, someone fainted. So this was the place where Krishna, in a duel, defeated Kamadev. So Krishna is not affected. But in the same way, Lord Shiva is also not affected by lust. And so this description is there in Puranas, how at one time, and Shiva is like complete renunciate, he's like lifelong brahmachari, and we might wonder how come that he has a wife, right? And so this is the story that one time there was one really horrible demon, and he was terrorizing so many demigods, and demigods, they went to the Supreme Lord and they were asking what to do, and the Supreme Lord said the only person who can defeat that demon is the son of Lord Shiva. And demigods were like saying, okay, he's not interested in marriage, and so he's not interested in women, and so, how do we get his son if he's not interested in women? And then they decided, okay, let us try to seduce Lord Shiva. And so they got Parvati involved, and Parvati was interested in Lord Shiva. And so they brought Parvati to the place where Lord Shiva was meditating, and then 2 demigods were accompanying Parvati. One was Kamadev, and the other one was Vasanta. Kama and Vasanta, right? Vasanta means spring. And so springtime is very special because it incites romantic feeling in people, right? And Lord Shiva is sitting there very high in the mountains, Kailash, and it's so cold there, and so it's like all his senses are frozen. He's like fully on ice. And they were thinking, okay, let us try to fire him up a little bit. And so then Parvati came and she started like dancing in front of Lord Shiva, but he was sitting with his eyes closed, absorbed in meditation. And then Vasanta, he started like melting the snow in that place, and then the flowers started, coming, and blooming and birds started chirping and all these spring signs appear around, and Kamadev shot an arrow into Lord Shiva's heart. And after that arrow pierced Lord Shiva's heart, that kind of distracted him a little bit from the meditation. And he, started smelling nice, fragrance of blooming flowers. And he smelled that and he was thinking, what happened? This is not supposed to be happening. Like, what kind of flowers are blooming in here? So high in the mountains. But then he was thinking, okay, it doesn't really matter. So, but then Kamadev was thinking, no, this is not enough. So he shot another arrow, and then when another arrow went through Lord Shiva's heart, another sense became activated, and Lord Shiva started like hearing the chirping of the birds. And then he heard the tinkling of the ankle bells. And he was thinking, what is this? Why birds are chirping, and who is tinkling the ankle bells in here? But then still he didn't open his eyes, but then Kamadev shot the third arrow, and then Lord Shiva started thinking, something is not right in here, so let me open my eyes. And then he opened his eyes, and then he saw Parvati in front of him, and she was dancing, and she was even touching him, trying to kind of, provoke him, because she was like so frustrated, you dance in front of the man and he's not even opening his eyes. That's such a frustration, so she was like trying to, kind of activate him. And then Lord Shiva slightly opened his eyes and he saw that something's wrong in here. And then Kamadev shot another arrow, and Lord Shiva was thinking, who's shooting all those arrows? What's happening here? But then Kamadev was hiding from behind the bushes. He was shooting, right? And then Lord Shiva has very special eye on his forehead, the third eye, and it's explained that this third eye is so powerful that only the spiritual essence remains in the presence of this third eye, and everything material is annihilated. And then he decided, what's happening here? And then he realized that someone's behind the bushes. And then he opened his third eye and looked at behind the bushes, and the fire emanated from that third eye and actually burned Kamadev into ashes, right? And then that was it. And then he closed his eyes, all the three eyes, and continued his meditation. And that was, like failed mission for all the demigods. And this was like a huge disaster. And then Parvati was crying, and Rati, the Kamadev's wife, she also came, and she was like, what happened to my husband? Just pile of ashes. That's all what's left. And then, all the other, and Basanta was lost, didn't know what to do, and then somehow it was communicated to other demigods, and then all of them came to visit. And they started praying to Lord Shiva, please come out of your meditation and talk to us. And Lord Shiva is, of course, and they were saying, we're in trouble, this demon is creating havoc, so only you can help. And so then Lord Shiva, being very compassionate, he came out of his meditation. He said, yes, please tell me. And then they were saying, it was predicted that this demon can be only killed by your son.
And so we're trying to make the arrangement to get you married so that we can have a son who would kill that demon. And Lord Shiva said, why didn't you tell me before? Just to save you, I'll go for it. I'll marry Parvati and we'll have a son. And of course, this is Skanda or Murugan as he's known in Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu. Right? And so he killed the demon. And of course, then Arati came to Mahadev and she said, it's all right, everyone is happy, but what about my husband? I lost my husband in the whole process. You burned my husband. He said, no, he's still alive. In his spiritual body, he's still good. She said, who wants a spiritual husband? I want him full on, but then what she said, okay, next life. And then, of course, the story of Pradyumna and Mayavati, right? That's the continuation of that Leela. Because Mayavati is Rati from the past life and Pradyumna is Kamadev in his past life, taking part in Lord Krishna's pastimes. And so, anyway, this is the illustration how unaffected Lord Shiva is by lust, and that's why who is Parvati? Parvati is Maya personified, and she is controlling everybody in this world, and he is the husband of Maya. So he is controlling the power which controls every single living entity in this world. So he's unaffected by illusory energy, and there is no woman in this world he is interested in at all. Zero. So why in here he is so curious to see this particular woman form? Because it's not just a woman, it's the Supreme Lord, and he's attached to the Supreme Lord, and he's fully absorbed in him, and this is why he's Mahajan. He's one of the greatest personalities on the scale of the entire universe. And he's showing us the best example of what does it mean to be Krishna conscious. Because Narad Muni tells us in Srimad Bhagavatam that we should be striving for the goal which is not obtainable anywhere in this material world. It is Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse 18. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable, even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. Famous verse, Prabhupada quoted many times. Tasaiva heta prayata kovida nalabhyate yad brahmadam uparyada tad labhyate dukhavat anyata sukham kalena sarvatraga vidaramasa. So, this is the example such great devotees as Lord Shiva showed to us, unflinching focus on the Supreme Lord, because Lord Shiva is always absorbed in meditation and he's meditating on the Supreme Lord. And here in this pastime, it's very interesting that we will see that actually Lord Shiva suffered a serious damage in terms of his reputation, right? because this pastime is just mind-blowing how much, like Lord Shiva lost his face, so to say, right? That he is the most controlled yogi, unaffected by anything material, not interested in any female association, topmost brahmachari, and then, so many yogis and sadhus, they meditate on Lord Shiva and they pray to Lord Shiva to become unaffected by material energy, and suddenly they see Lord Shiva running after women in front of them. And they're like, whoa, what happened here? And the most amazing thing in this pastime is how Lord Shiva responded to that downfall, of so many attachments in this world. They have different gradations, right? That, of course, sense gratification is the very basic attachment. But then, more than self gratification, we can see that people are attached to wealth, right? And that's why people are performing serious tapasya, right? They renounce from their sense gratification to obtain wealth. They control their mind and senses to make money, right? That there are so many stories about like businessmen who are like sacrificing everything, sacrificing entertainment, enjoyment, even eating and sleeping, just to make money. Why? Because they know once I have money, I'll have so much more of sense gratification, right? So wealth is much greater attachment than sense gratification. But there is an attachment which is higher than wealth, and that is attachment to power, right? That's why you can see that many times successful business people, where do they go? Into politics. Because they know that I am under the law now, but if I go above the law, I can make much more wealth and I can attain much greater results, right? So that's why they invest their wealth into power, because they understand that power is much more valuable achievement in this world than wealth. But what is the topmost achievement in this world? Well, this is beyond this world, but what's the topmost achievement in this material world? What's the topmost desire in this material world? Well, that's spiritual. But materially, fame is the topmost desire, right? Everyone has. And so, everybody wants to be famous. Reputation, right? That when people were interviewed after the famous 9/11 terrorist attack in America, and they were asked, what's your greatest fear in life? And the expectation was that people will say, well, fear of terrorists, fear of death. But what was the biggest fear people quoted? Public speaking. That it's so funny that some people, for them, it's easier to die than speak in public, right? Why? Because public speaking is connected to the fear of the loss of reputation, right? What if I say something wrong? So I will be criticized, right? So people are so afraid of that, right? Because this is a stronger attachment than attachment to the body, because this is false ego, right? I want to be respected. I want to be glorified. I don't want to be ridiculed and criticized. right? So that's the biggest attachment, and that's why public speaking is the biggest fear people have. And fail or fall in front of others, right, and look stupid in front of others, right? Many people would actually choose to die, right, rather than go through that kind of experience. And if people do go through that kind of experience, how do they respond? They become depressed, right? They become so morose. But the most amazing thing in this chapter is how Lord Shiva responded to the whole situation. Anyone knows how did he respond? He became happy. He said, I'm so happy now. It's mind-blowing, right? His reputation was ruined, materially speaking, right? And he said, I'm so happy because I have such a powerful Lord who can defeat even me. So that's why Lord Shiva is Mahajan, one of the greatest devotees. Really completely detached from everything material. And so that's, even though materially speaking, this pastime can appear like a pastime which embarrasses Lord Shiva and shows his weakness, so to say, right? But actually it glorifies him, because this kind of response is only possible from someone like him. And it shows his complete purity, his complete detachment, and his complete focus on the Lord only, without any deviation. So that's why he's teaching us very important lesson of being focused solely on the Supreme Lord. And of course, being focused on his service is as good as being focused on the Supreme Lord. All right. Anyone has questions, comments, complaints, suggestions?
Maharaj, I have
That's
two. The first one, what are the 8 symptoms of ecstasy? Or symptoms?
Oh, Ashtasatvika Vichar. I don't experience those, so it's hard for me to kind of remember them. So, but maybe devotees can help me. It's crying, tears, trembling of the body, changing of the skin color, hair standing on it, and shivering. Of course, fainting is one. 2 more. Anyone can help us? Choking of the throat, yes, Katkadavachana. And 1 more. Yawning? Okay. I think it's secondary. There must be 1 more primary. Anyway, 7 out of 8. Good enough.
And also...
it's described in Nectar of the Ocean.
Okay. Also, it's described that Lord Shiva is the Lord of the mode of ignorance.
Yes.
Would you be able to explain what that entails? Like, what does that exactly mean?
Well, it means that he is doing the most dirty work, because mode of ignorance means, of course, he is doing the destruction as well, because at the end he is destroying with his famous dance. He is also known as Mахарадж, the king of the dancers. And with his famous dance, he's destroying the entire universe. And he is also surrounded by those who are in ignorance, like ghosts and goblins and whatnot, pishachis, because he's the only one who can be transcendental in their association, and he's the only one who can help them to advance in Krishna consciousness. And actually, there are so many even contemporary stories how prior to Krishna consciousness, devotees were connected to Lord Shiva and worshipping Lord Shiva. I mean, myself included. That when I was leading the life which is not sattvic, I was very much attracted by Lord Shiva, because it's very interesting that you're absorbed in that mode, but then Lord Shiva is the master of that mode, right? And then you have his association, and his association helps you to become Krishna conscious. And devotees really like contemporary stories, so I'll tell you one contemporary story, not about myself, because you heard enough of myself, you saw enough of myself, but there is one Russian devotee, and he is very wonderful devotee, second initiated, very good leader and preacher, disciple of His Holiness Jayaprakash Maharaj. But his story, how did he become a devotee, is very interesting, because he was a ringleader of a criminal gang, and at the same time he was worshipping Lord Shiva. Kind of connected things, right? Actually, criminals, they also like Lord Shiva a lot. And yeah, because with Lord Shiva you can have no restrictions, right? You can smoke ganja and you can do whatever you want and still worship him, right? With Krishna you cannot do that. And so then one day, or shall we say one night, they were planning to rob a shop. They knew that a cash is kept overnight in that place. And so they chose like a really dark night. I guess it was Amavasya or something, moonless night. Make sure no one sees them. And then they went into the shop, they broke in, and they got the cash. And because he was the ringleader, he put the cash into a briefcase, and he had the briefcase. But by the time they were ready to exit, they overheard from the loudspeakers that this is police, and you are all surrounded, and you have to surrender, and don't try to escape, because we're, keeping the whole place in a circle. And they put so many, spotlights on the whole shop, and the shop had a parking lot attached to it. And so they were thinking what to do. They were trying to escape, break through the circle, but no one could do that because the circle was pretty tight. They were watching vigilantly, and then he himself, he was hiding between the cars at the car park and thinking what to do now, because the police was coming closer. They were narrowing the circle, and he heard their voices, approaching, and they had these flashlights in their hands, searching, if anyone else is here. And because he was the leader, he would get the worst penalty for the crime, right? And of course he didn't want to go to jail, he didn't want to get arrested. So he started praying to Lord Shiva very fervently, and he said, "My dear Lord, if you please protect me in this situation, I promise that I will stop criminal activities, and I will become very serious about my spiritual practices." Right? He made these two promises on the spot. And then he said, suddenly the part of the sky lit up. And he was like wondering what's happening. Then he looked up, and then he saw in that spot of light, he saw Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva was looking at him, smiling, and keeping his hand like that, Abhaya Mudra. And then he was so shocked by that, he completely forgot about everything else. My God. And then Lord Shiva disappeared, and the spot of light disappeared as well. And then he said, at that particular moment, two policemen were coming straight at him. He was sitting there, and somehow he kept the briefcase in front, a little bit as away from him, like that. And they actually directed their torchlights right at his face. And he was even blinded by the light. And he was thinking, okay, that's it. Now I'm caught. They saw me. But somehow they, the torchlight went to the briefcase, and then the policeman said, I found that briefcase with money now. Looks like they dropped that. And so this policeman came, and he was like sitting right here. And policeman doesn't see him. Picks up the briefcase and walks away. And everyone was arrested except him. And not a single member of his gang told police anything about him. So he was free. And he was walking down the street, and he was thinking, okay, I made those promises. Now I have to become serious about my spiritual life. So where do I start? How do I do that? And and he decided, okay, no more criminal activities. And then next thing, devotee, book distributor, comes to him with Prabhupada books and starts preaching to him. And then he realizes, okay, this is Lord Shiva's mercy for me. And then he becomes a devotee, and actually he brought many, many people after him. So, yeah. Lord Shiva shows a lot of mercy to very fallen people who no one else can reach. So, yeah, his position is very special, and his service is very special.
Normally, the past time we were talking about Lord Shiva's marriage, but we have heard some other story before, like Parvati did a lot of tapasya and then she married Lord Shiva. So, we were confused. Was this the reason that Shiva married Parvati?
Sorry?
Normally we have heard that Parvati did a lot of tapasya to get Lord Shiva.
Yes.
And today we heard the past time that the reason why Lord Shiva married Parvati, so I'm a bit now confused.
Yeah, well, there is no confusion. Two things are connected. Yes, Parvati had to do a lot of tapasya. But Lord Shiva was unaffected by any of these things. The only reason for him to change his mind was compassion. As any great souls, they sacrifice everything for the sake of actually showing their mercy to the suffering.
And the second thing, like they don't need to have the women to, like material weak people have to get the baby or production. So why then there was, if Shiva could have just, he would have given birth to a boy like that. So why there is need of a female? Because we talk sometimes that it's not like spiritual, but we need a male and female to have a child. Yeah.
Well, this is pastime. And this pastime is enacted, because Krishna is doing so many things he doesn't require to do, but he is doing these things to help us understand some important points. And so, in the same way, this pastime is enacted to show how detached Lord Shiva is and how compassionate he is, that he can sacrifice anything. Sacrifice his brahmacharya, sacrifice his reputation, everything for the sake of showing his mercy to the suffering. Right? So that's his prime motivation, compassion. And that's why he is the greatest Vaishnava. For the sake of compassion, he is ready for anything. Even drink the whole ocean of poison. Yes.
Maharaj, we hear that the Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. How is it that the Shaivism got so much popular and so many followers? And I would have thought that Lord Shiva would have directed all of them to Lord Vishnu.
What did it become popular?
The worship of Lord Shiva.
Oh yes. Yes. Well, it's again the same thing that Lord Shiva is fulfilling people's desires. That if someone, because he can give someone Krishna, but mostly people come for material benefits, right? And so those who want just material benefits, Lord Shiva is giving them that. Because some people, for them to realize the value of Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, they have to be thoroughly frustrated with material world. And so Lord Shiva is also giving them that opportunity.
But the followers of Lord Shiva, he is the supreme Godhead, and in fact they don't like there was a lot of in South India years gone by. There was a lot of discrimination against Vaishnavas. In fact, they were massacred and driven out of Tamil Nadu.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, caste system, but we have no problems with that because if we say that Lord Shiva is supreme, it is true on the scale of this material world, right? Because he is actually the father of all living entities in this world, because all living entities come through him only. Like Brahma Samhita is describing when Mahavishnu is glancing at the material energy, he's impregnating the material energy with his glance, right? And this is how all the living entities come into the material world. And so this is how the whole thing starts. But the glance of Mahavishnu is actually Lord Shiva. So he is bringing all the living entities into this world. And so, yes, for this material world, he is supreme. There is no one higher than him. And but if we look at the bigger picture, material and spiritual world, then of course Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Right? Yes.
Is Lord Shiva eternal?
Sadashiva, yes. He has expansions in this material world, but his original form is in the spiritual world. It is Sadashiva.
Would it be safe to assume that people who worship Shiva as the Supreme Godhead that she will be merciful to them in their next life, that they may become Vaishnavas.
Oh, definitely, yes. Those who are worshipping him, definitely they are getting a chance to advance spiritually, to become Krishna conscious, sooner or later. Yes.
When I was in India, I saw many times that people worship both Lord Shiva and Krishna.
Oh, yeah. Har Har, Hari Har.
And even, the house of Bhakti Rasayana, there was, in the courtyard, outside the house, there was 12 Shiva lingams all around the courtyard.
Yeah.
And his family worshipped Shiva also.
Yeah.
And when I was there, this lady came, she had Rudraksha, her hair was all matted, and she was like a yogini. But she also had Tulsi.
Yeah.
And she was going there to worship with the Vaishnavas, and they all were offering their respects to her.
Yeah.
She was worshipping both, and I think there was other people there doing the same thing. I don't know Bhakti Rasayana's personal family, but they did maintain 12 Shiva Lingam temples.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's also important for us to remember that Lord Shiva is in charge of false ego, and actually it's by the mercy of Lord Shiva we can become free from the false ego. So that's the Vaishnava benefit of pleasing Lord Shiva. And that's why he is the guardian, Kshetrapal, right, of the holy places, because no one can really enter, as Prabhupada says, no one can go to the holy places like Vrindavan, Mayapur, just by purchasing ticket. Because only one who is free from false ego can really enter into the holy place, right? And that's why, like, when you come to Vrindavan, traditionally the first place devotees go is Gopeshwar Mahadev temple and worship Lord Shiva to get these blessings, to become free from ego, false ego, and really enter into the holy Dham.
I seem to remember that I read in Bhagavatam that Lord Shiva is the egotistical principle of the Supreme Lord.
That's right, yes. It is there, yes. He's in charge of false ego.
No, not false ego, but Krishna's ego.
Krishna's ego.
Ah.
Krishna's ego. What does it mean?
I don't know what it means. The egotist. It was in the Bhagavatam. It said he's the ego principle.
Yeah.
Of the Supreme Lord.
Of the Supreme Lord.
Ah. Yeah, I hope I'm not speaking out of. But I wondered if you come across that or noticed that.
Oh, we have to look at the reference closely, but definitely it's described there that he's in charge of the false ego in the material world. That's his realm.
Hmm. That may have been actually what it was saying, and I misunderstood. Maybe it was saying ego principle, meaning the material ego principle, rather than.
Yeah, this is definitely there, but what you are mentioning, I haven't come across. I'm not saying that it's not.
No, okay, just ignore me.
All right, so thank you all very much for your kind hospitality. It's very impressive, the sincerity of the devotees in Adelaide. Very impressive. And I hope I haven't offended anyone, and I'll be looking forward to your association.
Are you leaving?
Yeah, this morning. So we'll finish here. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanand.
Bhakti Rasayana Maharaj ki
Jai!